Animism. The term comes from the Latin word anima, which means breath or soul. It is considered the oldest of human religions. While many religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, believe that people possess a soul that transcends life, the animism belief is that all objects contain a soul or spirit, and that these spirits are continually interacting throughout the universe. It also differs from those religions in being a polytheism, a belief in thousands of gods, as opposed to a belief in one supreme being or monotheism. In this regard, animism is more closely linked to the Hindu faith. In animism, there is a highly interconnected relationship between people, other life forms, inanimate objects, and naturally occurring phenomena, such as storms, fire, or earthquakes. All these possess spirits and souls, and these can interact in a positive or negative manner with humans, depending upon the care, circumstances, and ceremonies that take place. While it is ancient in origin, it is still practiced in differing forms by millions of people around the world. Colonialism and its ongoing influence in Africa. Throughout the course of human history, different civilizations have become more dominant at different times. In the 18th century, the European powers were dominant. They possessed weapons, transportation, and technology that allowed them to exert their influence on places around the world. There was a great deal of competition between European powers to secure the resources of countries around the world. In Africa, virtually the entire continent was carved up by the European powers. The British Empire controlled almost 1/3 of the continent, and France, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, Germany, and Italy all had extensive colonies. The creation of these colonies often followed geographic features, rivers, mountains, lakes, but did not always take into account the culture or language of the people. Tribal groups could be divided among 2 or 3 countries, and some countries were created that contained tribal groups who were very different or even traditional enemies. In addition, there were often different roles and powers given to the various tribal groups, which caused existing conflicts to become more deeply rooted and problematic. With the collapse of these empires, the colonies became independent countries based on the artificial borders created by the colonial powers. These divisions created tensions that have led to certain groups taking a dominant position at the expense of minority groups, or civil wars, or ongoing wars between different countries in attempts to gain power, people, or land, or to offer protection to their tribal groups being persecuted in other countries. The boundaries between countries are not always clearly defined, and in most cases, almost impossible to defend or protect. People move freely over these borders, at times not even aware that they have crossed from one country to another. These borders are also not always recognized as legitimate, as allegiance to tribal members who may live across a border is seen as a stronger loyalty. At times of conflict or crisis in one country, it is common for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of refugees to seek shelter in neighboring countries. This influx of people creates political instability and taxes the very limited resources of the host country. There is virtually no country in Africa with the resources to adequately care for hundreds of thousands of refugees. As noted, Sudan is an artificial grouping of 2 very distinct peoples, which is the root cause of much of the civil unrest that has dominated the country's history. In addition, the boundaries between it and its neighbors are, in some instances, still the source of conflict and competition. The ongoing crisis in Sudan have had a destabilizing effect on its neighbors, as refugees have fled to them, seeking protection and sustenance.